Coming up on the Empowered Woman podcast.
When it comes to business building and marketing is that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So that means you really need to figure out why you're doing what you're doing. Why are you making the decisions that you're making in terms of your life and in terms of your business? Because that is going to really come across in everything that you do.
Welcome to the Empowered Woman podcast, the #1 show on visibility strategies for women entrepreneurs. If you want to get empowered to be seen, stand out on social media, stages, TV, and more to make an impact with your voice and business, you're in the right place. I'm so glad that you're here. My name is Marcia Spurk, and I'm your host, professional singer and visibility strategist. Welcome again, and let's dive into today's episode.
Today's episode is brought to you by Success Magnified and the Biz Bestie Getaway, where empowered women entrepreneurs turn challenges into opportunities in a weekend filled with connection and fun. Join us in Colorado this October to rejuvenate your business spirit, make lasting friendships, and learn new strategies for success. Visit us at successmagnified.com/events and secure your spot now. Continuing on with my series in reviewing books, today I present to you a book that I had heard of a lot for a long time. If not the title of the book, I had heard the author's name several times. And then finally, I decided to pick it up. Now I'm trying to remember why. Maybe it was a recommendation in a list of books. I'm not sure why. But it ended up being so timely because there's another book I want to talk about in a next episode that goes hand in hand with this. Without further ado, the book is called Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And I think everyone should read this book, especially entrepreneurs, because he gives so many amazing analogies in terms of marketing and having your why be the filter or the basis for every marketing decision and for every business decision. And one of the examples that he opens with and he carries throughout the book really hit home for me, which was using Apple's marketing. And because Apple is such a big company and I use Apple products and technology, I understand the analogy and I understand what he was trying to, the point he was trying to make, especially when it comes to business building and marketing, is that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So that means you really need to figure out why you're doing what you're doing. Why are you making the decisions that you're making in terms of your life and in terms of your business? Because that is going to really come across in everything that you do. And so I think this is a great point to assess. If things are not going the way that I want them to go in my business, then I need to reevaluate my why. And I think for those of us who have gone through countless coaching programs and have coached countless people, we do this so much, right? We have heard people asking you, what's your why? We have asked people, what's your why? And I have been annoyed at this question because I felt like I never really got to the bottom of it. Well, my friend, if you have felt resentful like that, I really encourage you to go pick up this book because it really helped me get to the bottom of my why, because I watched him really flesh out the why of other big businesses like Apple. So let me start with how he starts it, which is, here's Apple's why. Quote, "Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. And we happen to make great computers." So they're not selling the computers. They're selling this idea, this belief, right, that they want to make something different. And then they say, well, and then we have these products. But people are sold on that belief and on that concept before they are sold on the actual product. And one of the great examples that he gives in the book is the MP3 player, which is the iPod, right? That revolutionized Apple. It started with the iPod. while other companies were focusing on the storage, so you have 5 gigabytes, you have a storage that you can use, Apple's marketing was 1,000 songs in your pocket. Oh, how different is that? That's what I'm saying. If you're an entrepreneur, you want to read this book because he gives you many ideas on how to revamp your language based on what people want, but also based on your philosophy, your beliefs, and your why, versus just talking about the features or just talking about the product themselves. So basically, to simplify and to summarize, when he talks about why, so you have to start with why. You need to understand why. He means it's a belief. Start with the belief. Now, the actions are going to be the how. The how, you realize that belief. And the what are the results of those actions. The products, the service, the sales, the marketing. And I love that later on in the book, he talks about how so often we focus on the what. We start with what instead of starting with why. And therein lies the problem. Therein lies the mistake. And that's why we have, so much of this thirst for success, because we're looking for the what. It's the next house. It's the next car. It's the next, whatever monetary result that I'm looking for, as opposed to the why. And for those of us who have, again, gone through all the coaching programs that talk about what do you want to feel, right? At the end of the day, it's not the new house. It's not the amount of money in the bank. You're looking for a feeling. I even had a guest come on the show who had a multi-million-dollar business say, at the end of the day, I knew I was looking for a feeling. It wasn't the amount. And it's interesting how at times it takes us reaching that point where we make the millions and then realize, oh my gosh, this is not what we were looking for. And how many times do you have to hear from the people that did make the millions until you realize maybe that's not the millions that I'm looking for. It's actually that feeling. And so Simon Sinek talks about how no one likes to lose. Wanting to win and wanting to be successful is not a bad thing. But the problem is when the metrics, the money, the numbers become your only measure of success. And what you achieve is no longer tied to the why you set out to achieve in the first place. And so that's why the belief is such a stronger starting point, because when people share that belief, they will trust you even if they don't understand it. It's a gut feeling. You won't have to lean on manipulation. So that's something else that he talks about, manipulation versus inspiration. Oh gosh. Yeah, he goes on this whole thing talking about how you don't need to use marketing tactics of scarcity or, fake scarcity or whatever it may be, because those, or discounts even, or promotions, because that falls into manipulation. Instead, lean on inspiration, because that's real influence. And inspiration comes with your why. So I feel like it would be helpful if I share with you that in reading this book, I really got to reflect and journal on what is my why? What is behind everything that I do? Especially when I look back and I see how many different things I've done, right? So starting with languages and, getting 2 degrees in languages, doing all these kinds of things. Then going to coaching and pivoting my coaching so many different times, getting to do a TEDx, publishing 2 books, then getting into music. And at times I'm like, oh my gosh, why can't I just stick to one thing? And I know people out there may judge me. Some people may judge me and ask, why can't you just stick to one thing? I mean, I think we judge public people too, celebrities that are like, oh no, here we go. Now they're doing this. And it's like, as long as everything that they're doing has that thread of their why, who are you to judge? And I really believe that my why is the American dream. Hey, let me ask you a question. Would you like to be my next guest on the Empowered Woman podcast? Do you have a story you'd like to share? Want more visibility for your business on a show ranked in the top 0.5% in the world? Well, then head on over to martasburke.com/podcast guest for more information. And I actually took this quote from a different book that I will cover at one point that is the book called The Body Keeps the Score. That's on my list to review. So if you like that book, stay tuned for my review. If you haven't read it and you're wondering what it talks about, stay tuned. But a point in that book that I feel that really touched me and explains why I believe so much in the American dream and why I believe that's my why. It says, quote, "Imagination is absolutely critical to the quality of our lives. It gives us opportunity to envision possibilities, an essential launch pad for making our hopes come true. Without imagination, there is no hope, no chance to envision a better future, no place to go, no goal to reach." Essentially, is having a reason to live for tomorrow. And I think that's what the American dream is for me, is I get to create something new. I get to pursue a different passion or a different skill. I get to get better at something, or I get to try something new. That gives you a reason to keep living. And that's what I do with my business. So what is your why? I invite you to go and read this book and check it out. There are a few other concepts that really spoke to me when he talks about there are why-type visionaries and there are how-type visionaries. He brings in an example of Bill Gates and how optimistic he is, and to exemplify why-type visionaries. So why-type entrepreneurs or why-type people tend to be visionaries, have overactive imaginations. They're optimists who believe all the things they can imagine can actually be accomplished. And I suspect I am a little bit of a Y-type, and that's what he then uses Bill Gates to say, that his undying optimism, even in handling super complicated problems, is just looking for the solution. And that's what people are drawn to when it comes to him. So he's an example of being a Y-type entrepreneur, a Y-type person, as opposed to how-type people live more in the here and now. They're realists with a clear sense of all things practical, better at building structures and getting things done. And the majority of successful entrepreneurs are how-type. They know how to build things, but will have to run their businesses themselves forever because they lead with manipulation. So here's that concept again. Are you manipulating or are you inspiring? So something to consider and think about as a business owner. Y-types can't build on their own, but they will attract people that will do things out of inspiration, create a culture where they take the business as their own to build it. So that's what you want. You really want a team. People that, in Portuguese, will say they will wear the jersey. In Portuguese, you say when you build a company that with employees and a team that really believes in you, they wear that company's jersey, right? They're like, I'm ready to fight. Like they join that company's army and they really believe it's a unit. It's not, each man for themselves. What else does he talk about that I really, really enjoyed? In the same concept, if you are a Y-type leader, you may not be able to do everything yourself, but you don't want to anyways, because you want people to support you because they believe in that same why. They're fighting for the same beliefs together. So it is a lot easier to grow and scale if you keep that why fresh. Companies that are very successful but then have a hard time growing and scaling is because at times their why becomes fuzzy and they start focusing on the what. So that's a very nice distinction that he talks about, which goes hand in hand with manipulation versus inspiration. Are you focused on the what or are you focused on the why? Because through time, and we see this with big companies or even with artists, right? As they get bigger, their why may get a little fuzzy and then it kind of loses its luster and it's, that first spark. So it's always important to go back to your why. And leadership requires two things: a vision of the world that does not yet exist and the ability to communicate it. And the vision comes from their why. Leaders achieve very little by themselves. They inspire people to come together for the good of the group. Leaders never start with what needs to be done. Leaders start with why we need to do things. Leaders inspire action. They don't manipulate action. Wasn't this so good? So yeah, if you're at a moment in your life or in your business where you're like, I don't really know where to go next, I feel like this book can give you some great perspective on thinking about, why am I even doing this? Right? So if you're like, I don't know what my next step is, chances are you're questioning why you're even doing what you're doing. And I've been seeing I've seen it through the years, But recently, maybe it's just the people that I've surrounded myself with, they're closing down businesses, they're going and getting a job and taking their business at a more freelance basis. And there really is no shame in any of it. It's a matter of you really listening to yourself, paying close attention to what's in alignment with your why in your next season in life. Because if we're doing the same thing all day, every day, year after year, then are we really following our purpose? That's something for you to think about and for you to find out. So once again, this was my review of Start With Why by Simon Sinek. I feel like it's a really, really helpful book for anyone, but especially for entrepreneurs, because he gives lots of examples of businesses and business people that are famous, so we can really relate and understand the points that he's trying to make. And I hope you're enjoying this series. I'd love for you to reach out and let me know if you enjoyed it, if it encouraged you to go read the book, or if you had already read it, it refreshed some of the points and then encouraged you to go revise it. Whatever it may be, please talk to me. Send me a message on social media or send me an email at contact@martaspurk.com. And if you are an author yourself and you'd like for me to read your book and review your book or interview you and talk about the book, please go to martaspurk.com/podcast guest and apply to be a guest.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope this episode empowered you. And if you enjoyed the show, please join the Empowered Woman community on Facebook and share with friends or leave a review on iTunes so more people can discover this empowering message. Until next time, bye.